Welcome to the Mind for Success podcast. I'm your host, Kimberly Lebbing, and I love seeing business professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs have massive success in their businesses. Are you ready to reach a higher level in your business? Are you looking to rise to the top and break through the barriers that are holding you back? If this is you, join us on the Mind for Success podcast. Welcome to the Mind for Success podcast. And today I am really excited to bring on our guest, Carrie Potter. Welcome, Carrie.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So Carrie is a financial planner, and she is a business advisor to professional athletes, to women, small businesses, including nonprofit organizations. Prior to launching the Carrie Potter Group back in 2006, she was vice president of PMG Sports and Entertainment in Washington, D.C. Carrie created and teaches a course in sport finance at Rice University, and as a certified financial planner and registered investment advisor, her expertise is in designing and implementing financial plans and business strategies, financial statement analysis, pooled investment vehicles, nonprofit financial management, and financial workshops. She earned her MBA, her BBA from George Washington University in Washington, D.C. And what you're going to hear today is she is really super passionate about helping women. So I can't wait to dive in about how she does that. And welcome again, Carrie, to the show.
Thank you, Kim. Very happy to be here.
Awesome. So I would love, I ask this of every guest, I want to hear the backstory, like how you got into doing what you're doing and, what really drives you.
That's a loaded question.
I know it is.
I was really reflecting on the title of your podcast, and relative to the word success, and very honored to be considered in that category, right? Apparently you consider me as a successful person. And I find that the word success in itself is such a moving target, right? So how do you define success? Like I would never be able to do that, because I feel like we're on a journey and it's always about what more can we do? How can we have a bigger impact in the community? How can we have a bigger impact in business? And how can we really help the next generation along the way, as well? And multiple generations now at this point, I would say. So when I think back about how I started, how I'm driven is the word you use, or what drives me, to do what I do, it all has to start with how I was raised. I mean, that's who I am. I mean, fundamentally, the values I have today came from the values I learned growing up in Omaha, Nebraska, with a family of 5 siblings, all very close in age, and 2 young parents that committed to raising 6 kids in a way that we learned how to be teammates. We all learned how to participate. There were no special rules for young girls.
Oh, I love that. That explains a lot, actually.
Boys, we all did the same thing, whether it was outside playing football or it was washing the dishes and, cooking dinner or vacuuming the living room, right? So we were all part of this organization, right, as a family unit, because our parents were working so hard at their jobs, long hours, to be able to take care of us, and put food on the table. And, very lucky that those ethics and values of hard work and teamwork were very ingrained in me since I was a young child. And this reliance on other people, and this place, I go back to this message, right, that you matter, right? If you don't do your part, the whole thing doesn't work. And that's as simple as keeping a family together, keeping a house together, with like I said, parents who worked very hard to just make ends meet. And I think that sort of grounding is what's been fundamentally very important to me, is developing that sort of value system to know that I'm an individual, but I have a place in many different roles. And if I don't hold up my part, then the whole thing doesn't work. And there's a responsibility, right, tied to that, and
Right.
accountability. And so when I think about what drives me, it's about, I've got to hold up my end, whether that's with my family, whether that's with my community service, obligations, whether it's with my clients or the students that I teach at Rice. I've got to do my part so that their part works too. And I think that's a big part of how I've been able to achieve career milestones and get to where I am today, to have these opportunities to do what I love, which is helping others.
I love it. I love it. And when you talked about your family, because I don't know that we really got into that when we talked, before the show, really, that explains so much. It really does. It explains so much about your passion and everything, because really that's where the groundwork starts, is how we were raised. So I love that. And I know, we did talk about this. I'd love for you to tell our listeners about your women's initiative and a little bit about that. Let's start there.
Sure. It's kind of come full circle. So I, just going backwards a little bit, I was raised in a Catholic family in Omaha, Nebraska, and I went to an all-girls Catholic high school called Mercy High School. And during that time, the foundress of the Sisters of Mercy, which is the order that runs a school, and then go back to these kind of values and how it's established, was this woman named Catherine McCauley, who was a very wealthy family in Ireland. She came from a very wealthy family in Ireland, but decided to take all of the money she had and turn her parents' home once they passed away into an orphanage and a place for homeless women to come. And so again, her passion for using her resources to help others is what drives the whole mission, and the mission of the Mercy education system, which again, is throughout the United States, throughout the world, really. And so I think that passion for being able to be a voice for those who don't necessarily have a voice for themselves, or don't feel strong enough to share their voice in the world. So from there, I went to college in Washington, D.C. at the George Washington University, where I was immersed in a city and a population of students that were very unlike my upbringing and very unlike, what I grew up in. And I just, it was the best thing ever. I embraced it. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I loved meeting people from different backgrounds and different religions, and who are passionate about different academic pursuits and different athletic pursuits and arts and theater and, just everything that a university like GW brings together kind of in one place. And throughout my 4 years as an undergraduate, I eventually was persuaded by some very persuasive young men to run for student body president, our student government. And in winning that role, I became the first female ever to serve in that role at the George Washington University.
Wow.
And when you reflect upon the fact that we just celebrated our bicentennial, that's a really long time, being in 1998, that it was the first time a female was elected. So I take a lot of pride in that, in the history of that, and really paving the way for other young women to step into that leadership role as well. Wow. And I continue to share that a little bit, again, going back to my background about why the value of supporting other women, helping other women, was kind of molded in me from my time at Mercy High School. And not to mention, I have 3 younger sisters and a lot, I couldn't even put a number on it, of younger female cousins. And so I was the oldest girl on both sides of my family, and really trying to set the example, for them as well. So all of those influences have really developed, a passion in me for helping women. And in my professional career, while I worked with professional athletes, men mostly, all the time, I've really been able to carve out a niche of providing opportunities and helping women in other ways, mostly through my nonprofit service. So I was the founder of Women in Sports and Events in Houston, Texas. It's actually a national organization that has chapters in many cities, of which I was a member in Washington, D.C. when I still lived there. But knowing that that opportunity didn't exist in Houston for our professional women, I got together with some other terrific leaders around our community. And in 2016, we launched that chapter. I've also been very involved in Texas Executive Women, which is an organization that brings professional women together to provide scholarships for young women and recognize professional women for their outstanding work in the community. And finally, the way that I'd really illustrate kind of how I've continued my passion for helping women is through my service on the Houston Area Women's Center board. The Houston Area Women's Center is the largest agency in Harris County, Houston area that provides services to help women and families, and actually all people, move their lives forward after suffering through domestic violence, sexual violence, or really any sort of violence. And in a county that's really the largest county, but also in the 4th largest city in America, we only offer 120 beds for shelter, security, and safety. So it has been a big passion of mine on the 10 years I served on the board, 5 years that I'm now on the advisory council, a board that I chaired, to really be disruptive in how that model works and lead to disruption in how the agencies and the funding happens, so that we can provide a lot more opportunity for women and children who are really fleeing domestic violence situations.
Wow.
And then now with the the real efforts too around human trafficking as well. So those are all things that I've been very, very passionate about in my, I wouldn't say my professional life, but in my community service life, because those are all nonprofit roles that I've played, and I've chaired all of those boards and really tried to provide opportunities, again, around women. So bringing it full circle, as I said, I talked a little bit about the background of why it's important to me. I talked a little bit about the work that I've done in the community, but now I'm bringing it full circle back to my professional world, where I'm a real niche financial planner and business advisor. I've always worked with professional athletes. I've done a lot of work in small business, a lot of financial work in the nonprofit space. But now I'm launching an initiative to really help women who want to build financial confidence. One, be involved in their financial matters, or two, to be in charge of it. If they are recently divorced or widowed, or just a woman who's independent and who's never been in a partnership or a marriage, then how do they build the confidence to make these great decisions when it comes to personal finance, when it comes to estate planning, when it comes to investments, when it comes to all of these decisions that we have to make about our future and about our dollars today. And I'm just really excited about this opportunity and the ability for me to share the knowledge that I've gained over my 23 years in the financial world.
It's awesome. And you can hear, and I know our listeners can hear, you can hear the passion. So, I mean, you can see it if you're watching on video, but you can hear the passion in your voice when you talk about this. So we know you're the real deal. So what are, and this is a little bit of a loaded question, but what are some of the main challenges that you see that women have to deal with as far like in business? I mean, you can pick a category or a business that maybe you see where there's some specific challenges that they might have.
I think there's a couple things that I'll touch on, and one being not just unique to women, but also to other groups that have been kind of left behind, let's say, people of color, people that have not had the same opportunities as some of our other, in America, right? I think that one of the challenges is always that when we were growing up and when we were building our dreams, we didn't see people who looked like us in positions that we aspired to be in.
Yeah.
And that's a big hurdle to overcome. When we started Women in Sports and Events, and this doesn't just go here, this goes all the way back to 1993, when some groundbreaking women launched this organization in New York City. And it started because a woman was going to negotiate. She was in marketing, and she was going to negotiate for her salary. And she said, let me get some of my friends together, some women, and ask them, how should I approach this? Everybody she worked with was men. All of her contemporaries were men. And again, that's not a negative, because men have really brought a lot of women up and been our cheerleaders and been our supporters, and, dropping our names in the room when we're not there, right? I mean, a lot of us have elevated to positions by having mentors who are male and supporters who are male, right? But at that time, negotiating salaries in 1993 was still very far off, for women. It was like, you should be very grateful that we're promoting you to vice president, or that you're getting this role. And so that was the whole idea. Like, if we've never seen people in those positions, how do we know that we could do it? And I go back to that word confidence. I talk about that with personal finance, and I talk about that with, as women are moving forward. That's the biggest challenge. And I don't think it's only for women, right? But I think, since we're speaking specifically about women, we need to see people in those roles. We need to see those women in those roles, then reaching their hand down and pulling the next one up, right? And helping in that way as well. And so today, I would say in 2022, we've made a lot of progress. You start looking at boards that are more diverse, that are giving, a lot more women opportunities. We're still way behind on those percentages, but you see more women in these positions. We see them in athletics, for example, right? It's been a long fight for professional women, whether it be in professional soccer or in basketball, or the women aspiring to play football and, in their leagues. It's all of these different mixes where today we're starting to see those things as reality. And I think that is one of the biggest challenges if you look from a business world perspective. Right. But I think it's also changing more rapidly than it has ever in the past.
Yeah, I agree. And something you touched on just made me realize like how much programming literally like in the brain that has happened because of the absence of seeing those women or minorities or whoever it be in those bigger positions. And it's something that as a kid, if you're seeing that, you don't know that it's even possible.
Yeah. Until we have these thought leaders and we have these action leaders, right, that believe they could and did, right? And now we have that sort of confidence. So it's about how do we instill that confidence in the younger generations or the ones that are being educated now, right? How do you integrate these things into curriculums and into programs and into trainings and then just realizing like there's a lot of people who came before us that, we talk about a glass ceiling, we talk about these things, but that have really put in the work. And how do we embrace that legacy?
Right.
How do we really appreciate, how do those stories get told and how do they get passed down over and over with these sort of appreciation and gratitude that we need to have for those who've been breaking down the barriers that existed, in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's powerful, really. It's a powerful, to be able to implement that, like you said, into education would be amazing. And I know there's a little bit being done, but not nearly enough. Yeah.
Well, that's why we go back to so much of the need for these community engagement activities. Whether it's the work I do with my professional athletes where they are passionate about a cause in the community and, you're out there interacting with the youth or interacting with other sectors that, they're passionate about helping, or it's through these mentor programs I mentioned, through the organizations I'm involved in that are providing financial aid, but not just financial aid, but also, mentorship and advice and suggestions on how to train on certain topics and certain things that maybe we never did, when we were younger, because no one ever thought about that. No one ever thought about, let's teach women about money and finance,
right,
and the stock market, and how to invest, and so the women who really paved the way in the 80s and 90s by working on Wall Street, they were radicals, right? Like they really were out there doing something that they never thought women, could actually do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if it's just the people and I'll ask you because you're in the industry. I don't know if it's just because of the people I'm connected with, but I feel like there's a shift with how many women are in the financial industry right now. And it looks like they're really doing well in that industry.
Yeah. I mean, look, Jane Fraser is the CEO of Citibank, right? It's the first time ever a woman has led a Wall Street organization. So the opportunities are coming, and I think with anything, we just hope that they continue to grow and that you continue to see those. There's lots of studies out there, which is very interesting, and I can't name a specific one, but if you Google it or whatever way you do your research, you'll find it that there's all this research about the benefits of having women on boards. That women have a different decision-making process than men do. And having the balance to me is what's most important. Just like you want to have a balance of diversity, right? You want to have people who not only look different, but who think different, who have different backgrounds, have different experiences, because you bring all that to the table and you hope that you're representing a good amount of the constituents for who you are making decisions for as a board member, right? I mean, that's the goal, right? That's where we want to get to. We are not there yet by any means, but I think, you know, in a business world, that's what you hope for, right? It's what you want. So you see it, you definitely see that. And the second study, and Bank of America just released this study, I think last week or the week before, but it talks about women in finances. It was a survey they did. And the question was, what's your number one hurdle to managing your personal finances? And again, you can extrapolate that, I think, out to women working in financial services as well. I mean, I think it's the same. And the number one thing I go back to, it was confidence. Women don't have the confidence. You know, so there's a saying, right? And that's the saying, but again, it came from some study that when men go to apply for a job, if there are 10 job requirements, if they meet one, they're applying for the job. When women look at something and it has 10 requirements, if we don't meet 9 out of 10, we're like, I don't qualify, I'm not applying for it. That's confidence, right? That's confidence to say, you know what, I might not have all 10 of those things to check the box, but I can learn them, grow into them, train them, or I can adjust in a different way to get it done. And that's the type of thinking we need to encourage, you know, for this sort of change to really happen, I believe.
That's powerful. And I did not know that. So it really is, that's powerful. And I mean, men and women do think differently. I mean, there's no doubt about it. So having those different perspectives, like you said, can be really powerful and really help move us along even faster.
I agree.
Yeah, I love it. So we talked a little bit about community and service and gratitude. And would you care to like expand a little bit on that?
Sure. I come from very, very humble beginnings, right? And I will share a little personal insight. I mean, I went to a high school. It was Catholic, so considered as a private school. But it's one of the only schools in the country that has something called negotiated tuition. And so the head of the school sits down with the parents, looks at the tax returns, listens to them and says, what can you afford to pay this year? And so here are my parents coming in saying, we can't afford to pay anything, but we really want Carrie to go to the school. It's very important to us for a whole bunch of reasons, right, that they explain. And so you're at a conundrum, right? What do you do? What do you do? Like, and let me tell you one thing, my dad was a salesman his whole life, mostly in the meat industry, dairy industry, but he knows how to sell things. So he told them, he promised them, Carrie's going to do something special for you. So you need to make this work. Like, she's going to be really important for you in this school. So whatever he did, he sold them. But, I was on work study all through high school. I had, and I had another job all through high school, along with being a 4-sport athlete, being on varsity my freshman year for all the sports, and having a job, having a work study job, also being top of my class. I actually graduated with a perfect GPA, 4.5 on a 4.5 scale.
Wow.
And also had a lot of responsibilities at home, taking care of my younger sisters because of the work schedules, that my parents maintained, to provide what they could for us. And so I go back to that because the model of the way this school thought about education was everybody should have the chance to get a good education and have the opportunity to, if they believe in the values, right, of what we're teaching here, those are the type of students we want, and we'll go overboard, to make that happen. So I fast forward a little bit, and I go to college, and I go for my father and I. It was the first time I've ever been on an airplane. We fly out to Washington, D.C. We go to visit the campus, and I'm just the happiest person in the world because this is my dream. I'm in Washington, D.C. I'm walking around campus. We're 3 blocks from the White House. We saw the monuments. I'm like, this is just where I need to be. The energy here is my energy. Like, this is who I am. It's what I want to do. And same thing. We get the last day of your visit weekend. They give you your financial aid package, and it's like, oh, there's just no way. Like, there's just no way this is going to work. So we're sitting at a breakfast the last day. We're supposed to fly out that afternoon. And I'm sitting there, my head's in my food. I'm sad as can be. And my dad says to me, don't worry, this isn't over yet. Something's going to happen. So we're sitting there and some gentleman walks up to us and he says, hey folks, how you doing today? And I was like, great, thank you, sir. Being polite, as ever. And my dad looks at me and says, Carrie, don't lie to this man. He's got a name badge. He might be somebody important. Tell him what you really feel, And my response was, well, I'm devastated because there's no way I can afford to come to school. My parents don't have resources to help me and I'm on my own and it doesn't work. And he says, well, look, lucky for you, I'm the head of admissions and I have time tomorrow morning. If you two would stay one more night, change your flight, come see me in the morning and we're going to work something out. And sure enough, we change our flight. The next morning we go see this man. His name is Fred Siegel. He's still a good friend to the family. And him and I talk and my dad does his sales pitch again, right? He's saying, there's something about Carrie that's special and you're going to see one day what that is. And, you're going to want her to be here. And then they look at me and they say, can you leave the room? And so they have some sort of conversation and we come out and long story short, we figured it out. Again, I'm doing work study. I've got all my grants. I've got all this stuff lined up. And I actually was working almost full time as an undergraduate student as well. But I go back, I know it's a little long winded to say those experiences and these opportunities in my life, the educational opportunities only happened because somebody else believed in me and gave me an opportunity. And they were both financially constrained, right? Like I was financially constrained from having the opportunity to attend either of those schools, but somehow we were able to make it work and people gave me this opportunity. And it wasn't just Fred Siegel, and it wasn't just, Sister Johanna Burnell at Mercy. It was all of the people then who were managing me, giving me opportunities, jobs, and, all of this and believed in me and kept things going during those difficult times where I was really on my own as a 17-year-old, young woman in Washington, D.C. So I just think like this whole idea of service, it comes from my experiences. If other people didn't have that mentality that they needed to reach out and help me, I would never be where I am today. I would have never had these opportunities. And so from day one, I was immediately invested in how can I give back to others? How can I make it my mission to do good while being good, right? I can be successful and do good for others. And that's really, we go back to the question about passion, about motivation, about how any of this stuff has come together. And it's not me, it's those who helped me and those who backed me and those who really helped me get those opportunities that I would have never been exposed to otherwise. And so when you talk about service, I mean, it's something you just really have to believe in and be passionate about and be grateful for all the people who provide these opportunities. And like I said, I only wish that I could, pay it back to all of those and more.
Wow. That was powerful. I want to end this with one. I mean, everything that you said here today was just power packed, very inspirational, motivational. So how can what's the best way to connect with you?
Oh, great.
People want to learn more. People want to learn more about some of your initiatives and some of the things that you're doing. What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, so pretty easy on social media. You can find me at Carrie, CarrieG Potter. That's pretty much my handle on Twitter, on Instagram, probably Facebook, LinkedIn. You can find me with that handle on all four of those platforms. And you can also visit my website, carriepottergroup.com. And awesome. You can find out about the services that I offer professionally, as well as more about the organizations I work with in the community that would love to bring in anybody who has the same passion for that mission as well. In addition to the work I do in Houston, I'm also chairing a board in Dallas called the Jensen Project, which is focused 100% on ways to end sexual trafficking of women. And so there's a lot of good things going on with that as well. And I just think that there's so much work to be done in that space, to provide new opportunities, especially for young women who are caught up in that system. So you can learn that and much more by checking me out on my website and social media.
Awesome. So we're going to put those links in the in the description of the podcast so that people can connect with you. And I just want to say thank you for being on today, because this was really powerful. So listeners, go check her out. Get on fire, go help, go do whatever you feel pulled to do, because this was really good stuff. So thank you so much for being on today, Carrie.
Thank you, Kim.
Are you ready to break through the barriers that are holding you back and reach a higher level in your business in just 4 hours? Be sure to click the link today and join other high-achieving professionals that have worked with Kimberly Lebbing to accelerate their success.